United States Supreme Court is weighing one of the biggest tests of presidential power in recent history. It is on whether Donald Trump's global tariffs are even legal. This week, justices heard arguments that could decide if the president can use a 1977 emergency law to tax imports from almost every country in the world. The case centers on a law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. It was written to let presidents respond to emergencies by restricting trade, not by raising taxes. But Trump used it to slap tariffs, which are basically taxes on imported goods as high as 50%, claiming US trade deficit was a national emergency. He said the move was needed to protect American jobs, fight drug trafficking, and fix what he called country-killing trade imbalances. Across nearly 3 hours of arguments, justices from both sides of the ideological spectrum questioned whether Trump had gone too far. Chief Justice John Roberts said, "Tariffs are taxes on Americans, a power that the Constitution clearly gives to Congress, not the President." Justice Amy Coney Barrett asked how an emergency law that never mentions tariffs could give the White House that much control. Justice Neil Gorsuch worried that letting Trump interpret the law this broadly would let any president take over Congress's powers to tax and regulate trade. Several justices also raised what is known as the major questions doctrine. It says that when a president takes big economic actions, ones that can affect trillions of dollars, Congress has to clearly authorize it. The court used that rule to strike down some of President Biden's programs. Now it may apply the same logic to Trump. If the court rules against Trump, it could affect over $100 billion in tariffs already collected. That's money paid by US companies importing goods since February, and fighting out how to refund it could be problematic. Justice Barrett warned that giving back all that cash would be a mess. Lawyers agreed, saying that only a few firms would get automatic refunds while others would have to file protests through US Customs. Trade lawyers predict the refund process could take a year or more, if it even happens at all.
I think it went very well. I think the Solicitor General made a very powerful case for the need for the President to have the IEEPA powers, and I believe that the other side, in a way, fell flat on their face. But that'll be up to SCOTUS.
Secretary Bassett, what's the plan B if the Supreme Court ultimately rules against the President's?
We're not going to discuss that now.
After the hearing, prediction markets slashed the odds that Trump's tariffs will survive. On major trading platforms, confidence in the policy dropped to about 30%. Companies and CEOs meanwhile say the uncertainty is the real problem. They can't plan investments when no one knows which tariffs will stand and which will be scrapped. Even if the court strikes these tariffs down, experts say Trump won't stop taxing imports. He has plenty of backup options under other trade laws. He can use Section 301 to hit countries for unfair practices, the same law he used against China in his first term. He can reach for Section 232, which lets presidents impose tariffs on national security grounds, even on steel, cars or furniture. Or Section 122, which allows short-term tariffs for trade imbalances. He could even revive a 1930 law from the Great Depression, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, which gives presidents power to raise duties by up to 50% on countries that discriminate against US businesses. None of these require Congress's approval, though they involve more steps and investigations.
I'll tell you, the White House is always preparing for Plan B.
it would be imprudent of the president's advisors not to prepare for such a situation. With that said, we are 100% confident in the president and his team's legal argument in the merits of the law in this case, and we remain optimistic that the Supreme Court is going to do the right thing. The importance of this case cannot be overstated. The president must have the emergency authority to utilize tariffs. Look at what President Trump has been able to do with the leverage and the power of tariffs. He's been able to sign peace deals all over the world and end global conflicts and literally save lives. He's been able to bring in trillions of dollars of investments into our country. In fact, this year alone, we are going to cut the deficit by $600 billion, namely because of the president's effective use of tariffs. And the president strongly believes that economic security is a matter of national security, and tariffs have a lot to do with that.
A ruling isn't expected until early 2026. Until then, the tariffs stay in place and businesses remain stuck in limbo. If Trump loses, analysts say he will likely reimpose similar tariffs using those other laws, stretching the uncertainty well into the next year. Federal Reserve officials even warn that the confusion could hurt the economy, though it might push interest rates slightly lower. The Supreme Court now has to decide whether Trump's emergency powers can stretch to tariffs or whether he's crossed a line set by the Constitution.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.